Could TCU running back Kendre Miller be the steal of your rookie drafts? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Magdziuk. Follow her on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. Kate, we are just one sleep away from the NFL draft. I can't believe we're here.
I can't believe we're here. It's been a long time coming. We've been breaking down these rookie prospects for what seems like 6 to 7 years. So to actually get tangible landing spots where we can start to analyze team fits, how these players are going to fit in schematically, and how do they meet these team needs, it's going to be a game changer. And we're about to see, I'm sure, a lot of rookie ADP start to flip on its head.
Yep.
I can't wait for the fallout.
All right, so for the everydayers here on the Locked On Dynasty Podcast, Matt and Ryan went over the first two rounds of our pre-draft rookie mock draft. So let's say pre-draft rookie mock draft. Kate, we're going to finish it up with round 3 today, and we're going to chunk it up by 4 picks. And you just tell me the most interesting selection of these 4. So at pick 301, you had Devin Achane from Texas A&M. Matt took Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver from Ole Miss. I took Sam LaPorta, tight end from Iowa at 303, and Ryan took Kendre Miller, RB from TCU at 304.
I gotta say, Marcus, this is like one of my favorite segments of the draft. I think there is so much value to be had here in the third round, and I feel like I didn't really appreciate that until this mock draft where we saw these players of this caliber go. I'm gonna say that Kendre Miller might be my favorite pick here. And I think from a perspective of like which of these running backs have a chance to be, a potential 3 down back in the NFL. I do think Kendre Miller has that skill set. He has that size. We saw him be very productive at TCU. And I do like if he falls into the right offense with the right opportunity, we could be looking at a guy who, could see 250 touches in a season if given the opportunity. And I think he could handle that workload.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's the safest of all these running backs. And it sounds like the closer that we get to the draft, Kate, some of these other running backs after Robinson and Gibbs have some question marks, like Tajay Spears. There's some serious injury concerns there. Dwayne McBride has more career fumbles than receptions. And you just start kind of knocking off all these guys. And then there's Kendre Miller, who's productive, no off the field concerns. He's athletic. It wouldn't shock me at all if he goes in the third round of the NFL draft. And all of a sudden now we're talking about him going 206, 207 in your rookie drafts.
Yeah, I think this is one of the situations that I'm going to be going through one final run of my rookie rankings. And I feel like Kendre Miller, every single time I edit my rankings, he's a guy that keeps creeping up, and I think it's going to stick. 12th in yards after contact this season, 13th in carries of 15 or more yards. Like this guy can be dominant with the ball in his hands, and I think it's probably going to come down to does he get the opportunity? But again, he's one of these guys that like I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in out of the gate and has 800 rush yards, 8 touchdowns. Wouldn't faze me.
All right, another player that I want to just mention really quickly, Sam LaPorta, who was selected at 303 by yours truly, actually. Probably the favorite.
A lockdown favorite, man.
Yeah, well, here's the reasoning. I think after Dalton Kincaid, who I think is probably the most likely tight end to have, fantasy relevance, I think LaPorta might be next. And the closer we get to the draft, it's the same thing. We're hearing, hey, teams like LaPorta more than Darnell Washington, and he could sneak into round 1. And while I don't expect that, I expect him to go within the first 2 rounds. And if you just look at his game, it's all about being a slot receiver and catching a million passes. And that translates to fantasy production. So you get that guy in the 3rd round. I I think that is a better pick and a better value than getting, Michael Mayer early in the second round, or Dalton Kincaid, maybe even in the middle of round 2.
Yeah, I think in terms of like the investment versus potential payoff, you're getting a certified stud as at a tight end receiver. And again, you get that discount, which can be huge. Like I'd love to, the more we go through this exercise, the more I'm considering taking those round 2 picks, trading back into the third, and having a bunch of these guys because like Sam LaPorta, I don't think the tier break is as significant as you would think between Sam LaPorta and guys like Michael Mayer, who has a more complete skill set. But like for fantasy,
Yep. Well,
like
Mayer's the
Sam
better
LaPorta,
player. Right.
Mayer's the better player. But like for fantasy, again, you mentioned that his specialty is as a receiver. Like that's what matters for tight.
Yes,
Like I don't want a blocking tight end on my roster because
exactly.
the fewer routes you're running, the less opportunity you have to catch passes and
Just to be clear, though,
actually score fantasy points.
we do want you to
Yes,
be good enough as a blocker to stay in the field, but we
yes,
don't
yes.
want you to be. We're going to spoil something. Darnell Washington goes later than Sam LaPorta in this mock, and I think it's because of that same thing. Like Washington's almost too good of a blocker, right? And LaPorta on passing downs, you don't want him in protecting your quarterback. You want him in the slot. And I just think in this mock, for example, Sam LaPorta went more than a round after Michael Mayer. And I know Mayer's going to have the higher draft capital, but I would rather have the cheaper player in this instance.
Yeah, I think again, it's a very fine line. I
Yes.
think Marcus, that line that you mentioned between being like a good enough blocker but not too good, like George Kittle feels like that anomaly, right? Where he's this really incredible blocker, but he runs enough routes. But there are times where like they need him as a blocker,
Yes.
and that limits his upside on a week to week basis. Like the ceiling is there for him after the catch, etc. But like.
Yep.
The fact that he is such a good blocker, like he actually gets used in that way,
Yep.
more often than you like. So it's definitely a tricky line, but seeing that third round discount on
Yeah.
Sam LaPorta
Heck yeah.
feels like a huge value.
All right, let's get to the next group of players, including 3 straight wide receivers who came off the board in round 3 next. This episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and the calories, then you need to try the absolute best tasting protein bar ever. It's Built. You've got to try it. If you're like me and you're trying to make a little bit healthier snack choices as we get into the summer, but you don't want to compromise on taste, we've got just the thing for you because Built Bars and Built Pops are absolutely amazing and they're healthy. Seriously, you've got to give them a try. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in so many unbelievably great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. I'm not sure how Built does it because they have only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, but a whopping 17 grams of protein. Now you don't even have to wait to get a box. You can still go to built.com, order boxes over there, which I do all the time. But now you can go to your local Walmart, go to the pharmacy section, and you can pick up a 4-bar box of the cookies and cream, the double chocolate, or the coconut puff. Or if you live near Sam's Club, like I happen to, run in, grab a 13-bar box with some of the hit flavors, including brownie batter puff and churro puff. You can thank us later. Again, go to built.com to check out their full selection of the best tasting protein bars on the market. All right, we are back. We want to let you guys know about NFL Draft Night. Join Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino, and other Locked On NFL local experts on the Locked On NFL Scouting YouTube page for live NFL draft coverage presented by Ultimate Football GM. Kyle and Joe will be live during all of rounds 1, 2, and 3. And then on Saturday, they'll get you caught up after each round. Join the draft dudes for the first round tomorrow night live on YouTube and on the Locked On NFL Scouting page at 7:30 Eastern Time. Okay, let's get to the next group of players. You had pick 305. You took Rashee Rice, wide receiver, SMU. Matt at 306 took Jaden Reed, wide receiver from Michigan State. I went with A.T. Perry, another wide receiver from Wake Forest. And then Ryan Took Darnell Washington, tight end from Georgia at 308. What pick stands out to you?
I kind of like Rashi Rice here at 305. We covered him pretty early on in our scouting process.
Mhm.
And relatively speaking, compared to some of the other receivers we were scouting, just generally underwhelming. But Rashi Rice, I do think at this point in the draft, when you're looking at a player who's, one of the relatively larger receivers in this class, 6'2", 203, very productive at SMU in this past season,
Mhm.
over 1,300 receiving yards. He's got good body control. I think the traits can be there for Rashi Rice. He was very explosive, had a good combine. Um, I think in terms of the prospect, when we're comparing him to these four other guys, I think the upside feels a little bit higher for Rashi Rice, especially depending on landing spot.
I really liked Rashi Rice's tape. I didn't like the Senior Bowl tape. He just didn't separate at all. Um, he had just a yo-yo process for me because then he goes to the combine. He runs way faster than I thought. His jumps in the broad were amazing. And I'm like, okay, I'm
Off the
back in.
chart.
Yeah, and then well, you're hearing he didn't interview particularly well. There's some off the field maturity stuff that's going on. So he's one of these guys that I could easily see Kate you getting a fantastic value on him. Like if he goes third round of the actual NFL draft, I'm in. But I won't be shocked if he slips into day 3, and we just know it's really hard for a wide receiver to hit on day 3.
I think that's totally fair. Now, comparatively, when you're seeing like these three wide receivers, right? Rashi Rice, Jaden Reed, A.T. Perry, going back to back to back. Um, are there like either of these prospects you feel are safer that you would
Yes,
prefer to
yes.
invest in? Which one?
Jaden Reed is the safest by far, by a lot, to be honest, because I think productive at Michigan, special teams production, which we know translates to the NFL, pretty good at the combine, just really, really solid. And we are seeing some, stuff from like guys like Jim Nagy, who ran the Senior Bowl. Like a lot of smart teams like Jaden Reed, they see him as somebody who can play inside and on the outside. My issue with Reed is I just don't know what the ceiling is there. And is he just going to be one of those guys that is a good player in the NFL, but is a little bit clogged on your dynasty rosters, like somebody that you're never comfortable starting? That's my only issue with him.
I think that's very fair. It feels like the ceiling's just a little bit lower.
Exactly.
Um,
But I think he's going to be a good NFL player, just to be clear. Like he's going to be one of those probably third or fourth receivers that's just very competent. And for an actual NFL perspective, that's a great thing to have.
And in terms of like streamability, right? Like we know
Sure.
wide receivers are a lot easier to, flex in and out depending on matchup. Like that might be a situation where, you look at these guys in the later rounds and you say, okay, like not my stud,
Yes.
not expecting stud production, but, these players that are actually good on the NFL field, that might translate to, some
Yes.
week to week streamability, and that can't be underrated in Dynasty. You need depth.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if his NFL comp, not in terms of like play style, but like how we view him as a receiver is similar to like Josh Palmer with the Chargers. Just like if he's your number 3 receiver, we're feeling great about it, but there's just no going to be week to week consistency there at all.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. One other name that I just want to throw out. We kind of briefly mentioned him before, Darnell Washington. I think this is the spot to grab Darnell Washington. Like if you can get him mid to late third round and you're just betting on size and athleticism, this is the spot to do it. I just don't know if I would gamble on him any sooner than this.
He might get significant draft capital. Like you're hearing some buzz that like he might sneak into the first round. Like if he got that kind of draft capital, which I don't think he sneaks into the first round, but if he were,
Top 40-ish though.
I could see it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 4 tight ends go in the top 40.
I agree.
But if he snuck into the first round, would that change your mind at all on Darnell Washington from a dynasty standpoint?
No, to be honest, I don't think it would. Now
I
I
guess if
think
you're projecting him to go top 40, it's not like that big of a difference. But again, like just having that tag first round
I,
draft
I
capital.
yes, I think it depends on the team though to me, right? Because if he goes to Buffalo at 27
mm,
and he's playing alongside Dawson Knox and he's just being like an extra blocker for Josh Allen, I don't love that, right? But if he goes one pick later and he's the pick for the Bengals, and now he's their tight end one, and he's the guy that's catching a lot of these red zone touchdowns. I think that's different. So I don't think for him the draft capitals matters as much as the destination does.
All right, let's get into the final 4 picks, Marcus, because there's a banger here.
Yes. Well, we should mention 3 running backs and 1 wide receiver in the final 4 picks. We'll get to those picks next. Want to let you know about Locked On's NFL mock draft special. It's out, it's here, and it's bigger than ever. Follow along all 32 teams' first pick in a 6-episode ultimate mock draft experience. Only Locked On can deliver. All episodes are available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Kate, final 4 picks here. You went with Sean Tucker, running back from Syracuse at 309. Matt took Evan Hall, a fun running back from Northwestern. I went with Tank Dell from Houston. And then we have to wrap up the draft, Ryan selecting Chase Brown, a running back from Syracuse. What was the most interesting pick for you?
All of these picks really kind of tickled my fancy. But Marcus, I feel like we wouldn't do a mock draft justice if we didn't talk about Tank Dell and just
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
got to pay homage to the guy that I like. I'm still so conflicted on Marcus because everything in my gut tells me don't fall for the size outlier. Don't do it, Kate. But then I turn back on the tape and I watch Tank Dell play and I forget that he is 5'8". Like he makes it so easy to forget how tiny he is. But like he would be the ultimate outlier. Like do you have any sort of insight for us as to how these teams are viewing Tank Dell? Because I think maybe that's going to be the differentiator. Like we saw Tutu Atwell go in the second round despite size concerns because
Mhm.
Sean McVay and the Rams saw that potential and thought he could be the size outlier. Our team's seeing the same thing from Tank Dell because on the tape, there's not you don't have concerns.
Yeah. So one of the things that I do every year is I compile a consensus board from the top NFL draft experts. So this is no fans or people like even like me. It's Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler, like the heavy hitters, right? And I've got their top 150 list, and it's pretty good at telling you where players are going to be drafted or around where they're going to be drafted. Okay. Right now, Tank Dell on the consensus board is the 82nd player, which actually to me is fine, right? I just wanted to see have be ranked inside the top 100 because that gives him a chance to go third round, early fourth round. And if that's the case, I think he has a chance to really hit because okay, I was like you. I watched Tank Dell again this weekend. I have yet to see someone cover him. And I'm not even just saying that. Like nobody has been able to stop him for more than a quarter or a half at a time. Like he is unbelievable. And if Tank Dell doesn't work out, I will probably be done drafting these sub 5'9" receivers ever again because I feel like he's about as close to I don't want to say perfect because that's too strong of a word, but like if he doesn't work out, I don't see it ever working out for one of these small guys.
I feel like we've said that multiple times. We've said that about Bryce Young. Like, if it doesn't happen with Bryce
Yep.
Young, we're done.
Yep.
If it doesn't happen with Tank Dell, we're done. And I do think that, like, if there is one player that I like, and again, I'm a size skeptic. Like, I am fully of the mindset that like size can be important. I think it's becoming less important
I
in
agree.
today's NFL, where I think scheme can get these guys in a wide open field with the right coaching staff, and you can just see these guys make plays. Like, eh, if you're able to scheme to avoid hits, that's great. Like, but like Tank Dell, Marcus, he his get off the line, his twitch, everything that you look for in a wide receiver, he does right. He does
Yes.
all of these little things perfectly. And
Can
the
I tell you,
skill,
I want him to land with a team now that we're a day out. I want him to land with a team that has a non-mobile quarterback because I think that's where he could have some value is as this outlet guy. We just swing the ball to let him make plays and let him play at a slot and win quickly. So I know there's not a lot of those landing spots. I mean, the obvious answer to me is obviously the Bengals. Like I think that makes a ton of sense. But if he can land on one of those teams where he's just an outlet receiver that can make plays after the catch. And by year 2, year 3, he's starting to see relevant volume. I think he could be a dynasty asset.
what's crazy about Tank Dell is just I think the potential upside for touchdowns, not because he's going to win by being bigger, but because he can't be covered. Like
I mean, he only scored 31 touchdowns his last 2 years in
that's
college.
it. Like pathetic. This guy is a peasant. I'm kidding. I like what makes him so special is the fact that he can generate so much space without needing to stretch an entire field. And like the speed concerns, guess what? Like it's not super relevant to the way that he plays
No,
football.
because he's so quick off the line. Like that's how he wins, right? I
He's
think
quick, he's not fast.
I
And
think I saw something like his speed was like in the 60th percentile for receivers, which is fine. But he had like a 97th percentile 10-yard split, and that's what matters for him.
yeah, and having that ability to get open so quickly, um, like I think that can translate to scoring some touchdowns at the
Yep.
NFL level. And oh man, especially if you're in like a best ball league,
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, why not?
NFL should be
Yeah.
climbing up that draft board because on I think any given week he's going to pose a threat, and he's going to be hard to cover even against NFL talent.
All right, lastly, before we move on or before we head out and just really quickly, of these 3 running backs, Sean Tucker, Evan Hall, Chase Brown, which one is the most intriguing to you?
I would be saying Sean Tucker. I want to get your vibes here on the medical
It's
situation. There
bad.
was concern. Okay. So
I think there's a
that
chance
changes things.
I think there's a chance he doesn't get drafted.
That is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
Uh, so uh the community at large not putting a lot of stock in the fact that he was cleared for the pro day, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um not putting a lot of stock in that fact there and that clearance.
No, I don't think so. I just don't think he's somebody that teams want to gamble on like in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. And they might just be better off giving him some more undrafted, making him an undrafted free agent, giving him some money that way. But I would be shocked if he's selected in the first 150 picks. I really would be. I hope for
Incredibly
his sake.
disappointing
I hope
because
it
I
happens for him.
you love the speed. I think there's a lot of potential there. But the medicals
Yep.
just
Not
are going
great.
to be the precluder. So outside of Sean Tucker, who do you like here?
Brown, just because he's so explosive and he's one of these like sparky athletes who, in the right system could get, would not be surprised if he works his way up a depth chart pretty quickly because we've seen this happen before. Like on day 3 of the draft, just gamble on athleticism because more often than not, it's going to work out at that position.
Yep.
All right. Well, there you go. That's the conclusion of our 3-round pre NFL draft rookie mock draft.
Take a
Kate,
bow.
yeah, I know. I can't wait to do this after the draft and see how things have shifted. That's where you really get to see who moved up and down the boards. But we'll make sure we do that over the next week or two. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day or tomorrow. We're going to be back with some more NFL draft talk on the morning of the draft. Again, we want to remind you guys about the awesome show that Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino are going to be doing on the Locked On NFL scouting page at 7:30 Eastern time after rounds 1, 2, 3. They're going to be live the whole time. And then again, after rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7, they'll be up doing some recaps. So join them again Thursday at 7:30 Eastern time on the Locked On NFL Scouting page. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you guys tomorrow for the NFL draft.